One of the worst places in the world to be right now from the standpoint of coronavirus is the U.S. state of Florida. In total, the United States is one of the worst places to be, like if you look at just country level data. But thankfully, for now, some states in the United States are actually doing pretty well. But if you look in more detail at the state by state data, there are some spots in the United States that are the worst places to be. And that includes Arizona, that includes Texas, that includes California. But certainly Florida is one of those places. Florida has 21 million people. That's more than many countries have. If Florida were a country, it would be one of the countries with the worst outbreaks in the world right now in terms of the growth rate of cases. Florida Republican State Rep Anthony Sabatini went on CNN, said Florida's doing just fine. Now I'm going to play some clips for you. He sounds completely delusional. He praised Governor Ron DeSantis' handling of the virus. Ron DeSantis, the Florida Republican governor, is engaged in a battle with Georgia Governor Kemp and Texas Governor Greg Abbott for who has had the absolutely worst response. The outbreak in Miami is being compared to the initial outbreak in Wuhan, China. Dr. Lillian Abbo said, quote, "Miami is now the epicenter of the pandemic. What we were seeing in Wuhan 6 months ago, 5 months ago, now we are there." But Anthony Sabatini doesn't care. Here he is. By the way, Sabatini, I feel like he's doing a disservice to the Sabatini name. Great Argentinian tennis player, Gabby Sabatini, and Anthony Sabatini shows up on CNN and tries to tell Breonna Keeler that everything's fine in Florida. Breonna Keeler tries to bring him back to reality.
Well, Brianna, I think what you're doing is what a lot of folks in the media have done, which is harped exclusively on one metric, namely the cases. Cases, cases, cases. The media is almost exclusively focused on this one number versus the two most important numbers, obviously, hospitalizations and fatalities, where in most parts of the states flatlined or gone down, especially in mine.
So for now, Sabatini is just pushing the talking point. Cases don't really matter. What matters is hospitalizations. What matters is deaths. But remember, the cases are the earliest indicator. First, you test positive. Then you get sick enough to have to go to the hospital. Then some portion of those folks who go to the hospital die. And case in point, cases have been exploding in Florida since around June 26th. That's like 20 days ago. Deaths started to spike a few days ago. Yesterday, again, Florida set a new single-day death record. And then they did it again. I mean, multiple new single-day death records in Florida. So deaths are spiking. Anthony Sabatini is pretending that they're not. But let's continue with the interview, and you're going to hear the state rep from Florida say, Florida's doing fine and DeSantis is doing great.
And so if we focus on the two more relevant metrics, Florida's doing just fine.
Okay, we focus on case positivity, and we just did a report on the metrics that you cited. Perhaps you didn't hear it. But you've had actually in Leon County a circuit judge who said, and look, we checked, Representative, we checked with constitutional experts who said, and this is what the court judge said, and this is what the circuit judge said, and constitutional experts agree with this. The ordinance, because you lost in Leon County, the ordinance has a, quote, valid basis to protect public health because I mean, you talk about this being an extraordinary circumstance, but we are in an extraordinary circumstance. We're in a pandemic, and Florida's not doing just fine.
No, they are. But on the judge issue, there's about 800 circuit court judges in the state of Florida.
You think Florida's doing fine right now?
Absolutely. I think the governor's response has been on point, and I think that the metrics that matter the most, we're doing very well. And if you're counting cases, you're going to scare people. But what they don't realize is cases are
deaths.
Far less.
4,521. Total cases, 301,000.
Last week in Florida,
hospitalizations increasing, 19,334. 54 hospital ICUs have reached capacity in Florida. Another 40 hospitals show that ICUs are at 10% or less availability.
Well, let me remind you,
you say you're doing fine?
We're the nation's third largest state. So out of the 70,000 new cases we had last week, we had about 100 more people go to the hospital. That is a extremely small number when you're looking at the fact that we have 21.5 million people. Certainly not the sort of numbers that would drive people to shut down the economy.
Sir, you're the epicenter of a global pandemic, and you can't even admit that?
That's actually a false assessment entirely. I don't even know what you mean by epicenter.
Notice that this is not about math. We like to think sometimes on the left naively that if we just show them the numbers, everybody's going to get on the same page. Everybody will understand what's going on. Everybody will agree. Just show them the numbers. But it doesn't work. And yesterday we spoke to Dr. Christopher DiCarlo about critical thinking and about data and statistics, and it just doesn't work that way. And part of the reason it doesn't work that way is you have people like Anthony Sabatini and Donald Trump just saying things that aren't based in fact, going around saying Florida's fine. We're not the epicenter. There's nothing to see here. Reality doesn't matter. Now, on top of this, we also have to remember we have much reason to think that we aren't even really getting the true numbers out of Florida. If we go back about a month, 6 weeks, there were already allegations that Florida was covering up or misreporting data. Now, officially, as of 2 days ago, the Trump administration says, stop reporting to the CDC. Instead, report your data to HHS and Alex Azar, Trump tool Alex Azar, who at one point hired a Labradoodle breeder to deal with the day-to-day of coronavirus. That was early on. So even with the numbers we're getting out of Florida, Florida's deaths have hit new single-day records multiple times in the last week. The last week in total has been the worst week for Florida in terms of cases, in terms of deaths. But remember that on the tail end of this, the real data might be even worse. Florida is the epicenter of the global pandemic at this point in time. And part of the reason why is they insist everything's completely fine. It's like the Naked Gun scene with the great comedic actor Leslie Nielsen, where he's saying, please disperse. Nothing to see here, please disperse. And a building is exploding in the background. Many of you know the scene. It's been the subject of a lot of memeing on the internet. That's essentially what Anthony Sabatini is doing here. And it's absolutely insane, absolutely and utterly insane. One of our sponsors is privacy.com. They're giving you $5 when you sign up for their completely free service at privacy.com/Pakman. I've been using Privacy for a little over a year now. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a lifesaver, and here's how it works. Takes just a couple of minutes to set up. Anytime you buy something online or on the phone, instead of actually using your real credit card number, the Privacy app and the browser plugin let you give each company a randomized virtual credit card number that you create out of thin air. It'll even autofill the card number with one click. And the payment is taken out of your checking account without the merchant ever knowing your real information. So this allows you to keep your banking information secure, but also to take control of your finances. You can create up to 12 of these virtual credit cards a month. You can set spending limits. You can freeze them. You can delete them anytime you want. So when you do this, it means you're not going to be charged when you don't want to be, because you can destroy the virtual card number right after using it, which, for instance, I love using free trials because I know I won't be charged when the trial is over if I use a virtual credit card number. You're keeping your identity private by not telling companies who you are. You're keeping your bank or credit card info protected against data breaches and identity theft, and it's free. There's no catch whatsoever. But if you want, Privacy also offers a $10 a month plan that gives you 1% cash back and lets you create 36 credit cards a month, and a $25 a month plan tailored more for small businesses where you can create 60 card numbers a month and much more. But definitely go ahead and at least get started with the free plan. You'll protect your financial info. Companies can't charge you unexpectedly. And like I said, you'll get $5 to spend when you sign up at privacy.com/Pakman.